Hey, good morning, YouTube. There comes a time in the life of every dungeon master when he must face the truth. He must make DM journal. Alright. Alright. Stuff set up here. Here we go. Pop distance. Hello, everybody. Once again, we're here. We're going to do a Warpshell DM journal. This is about the second adventure that I ran for the Warpshell Dragon crew. And it went well, so I'm going to go ahead and share it. The threats, the timers, the treats. Here we go. Diving right in. So, first scene. Players load in. We actually started off with a little bit of role playing around the bridge of the Warpshell. I have one of those set up here. Here we go. Coming out of slip space, they all eventually made their way up to the bridge and were greeted to the site of the Imperium Belt, which they all voted to as the place they wanted to go to next. So that's where we did it. They found a vessel that was derelict, but still had some power and a life form signature aboard. Vizio drank some weird Imperium cocktail stuff back at the last adventure, and so I gave him a little bit of a vision kind of coming into this one, and he knew that there was a little girl somewhere out there alone. So when he heard one life form, immediately the dots connected and like, nope, we have to go. We have to go. He's like straight for the airlock. It was pretty cool. Call to action came together really nicely. And then we ran a kind of a unique encounter. They landed on the outer hull of the ship. This little port down here was sealed up at the time. And I'll see that, if you go and watch the video. And as they tried to open it up, these defensive turrets sort of opened up out of the side of the hull and began to fire on the NPCs. And so what was unique about this particular encounter is these railgun turrets were set up to instantly drop anyone 0 if they hit. But it wasn't just like a roll or die. We'd use the DM timer in turns instead of rounds, and I would have it move and narrow in and target. So it was, and I would actually draw this line that you see here to make it extremely obvious who was going to be hit if they didn't move. It's just a key mechanic, making people move around within the space. Here are my notes. Yep, railguns. 2 hearts, hard as iron. Target, then fire, +5 to hit, drop to 0. And this is how I ran my entire adventure. Just out of this one little page. You don't need as many monsters usually to fill out an adventure as you might think. I think that sometimes, especially when you're a new DM, you every scene you want to have 2 or 3 different creatures, and you're flipping through your DM manual trying to find this or that. The simple truth is you can pick 3 or 4 creatures at the most for an entire night of adventuring, and it gives the players an opportunity to kind of learn what's going on with that creature. If you try to give a giant zoo of stuff, it gums up the works. It slows things down. So going back. So yeah, I did the old heart of effort, right? They had to get a heart of effort to get this thing open, to get out. All their companions were being shot up. 2 of the players were hit and dropped to 0. That was part of the learning process of oh, that's what happens when this hits you. But I think it was fair, right? I mean, it's described as a railgun, like a ship-to-ship combat railgun going to hit you. It did a lot of telegraphing so that they would understand that would hurt a lot. And the hubris of players is that they wanted to deal with it, so you pull something like this, you're almost guaranteed to get at least 1 player who drops to 0. which adds to the spice for the rest of the night. It's sort of like an inversion of the health pool, because they'll drop to 0. They'll almost certainly have a success in bringing that player back. And in this particular case, it's because there's not a lot of moving parts to it other than grabbing a body and moving around. And they're not being harried with constant attacks every single round, just when the sort of the DM timers come off. Well, I guess that would be every round, but if they're not standing in the way, they know that they're safe. So reasonably low target, reasonably easy to imagine that players will be able to pick up whoever gets dropped and bring them back, which they did. And then it sort of flips the health side, so they're really starting with like 1 hit point at the start of the adventure instead of many. Some of the players will have many, so it sort of creates a dynamic for them to play off of the rest of the. It was very successful. So they go down this tunnel here, and they get to the bottom to like an airlock. All of that, we just ran Theater of the Mind. My advice is to worry less about having maps to create like a giant crawl. I mean, you can do that and they're fun, but if you're going to tell like a long cinematic story, make the rooms points of light. Make the room something that there's sort of an ephemeral, misty space to get from point A to point B. Then you're always guaranteed that you can always route the players from point A to point B if you're, planned out all these rooms. And I'm sure there's some people out there who'd be like, "Oh, that's a railroad. Oh, that's bad." But it isn't. You can't humanly imagine all of the possibilities that your players are going to come up with. And in the moment, I mean, if they wanted to go to a space that I don't have mapped out, then yeah, we would do that. We would Theater of the Mind it up and go to that place. And hopefully eventually they'd come around to the adventure that you prepared. Or you should probably just man up and say, "Hey guys, I don't really have content prepared for this, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. You're going to have to give me a minute, go in a restroom break and come back." But it worked out well. So they wander through the ship. They get to this point here, where there was like a shelter. We had a kind of scene here where there was a little girl sitting at the base of the statue. They come up. Doorway to get there was blocked by all these boxes. They started moving them around. These guys, you're all seeing the aftermath of the adventure. Throw that into the layer here. Through these sort of creepy looking crew skeleton monster things. They were sort of skeleton humans that had been decayed by some kind of blue glowing goo. Inspiration came from the Expanse series, the weird blue glow materium, the prime material matter, or whatever it is. Anyway, slime. It's slime. It's basically nanites that eat people and turn them into weird monsters. Threw together what I thought would be an interesting mechanic. Every time they hit, so they had a +2 to their hit. They had a 6 +2 attack. And if they rolled a 15 or higher, they'd lose a point of armor, as in the slime would melt away some of their stuff. So that was fun. And these guys just pretty much hassled them constantly while they were trying to break into this room. And of course, the little girl was here by the statue. And up here in these beds were a whole bunch of innocent bystanders, which began turning into slimes to add a time pressure on that they needed to get into the room to save the little girl. As it became more clear the little girl was there, I revealed that the little girl was actually the niece of Vinzo, one of the characters. Vinzo did me a solid, man. He wrote me up this cool backstory right at the start of the campaign that he was a nobleman and he had fled kind of the planet for X, Y, or Z reasons. And so I thought it would be really cool, like, what if this vessel was his family's vessel? And, like, maybe some of his family could on this thing. And it really became a pivotal point that lasted throughout the rest of the next like 2 adventures, which have been recorded and posted but are not available yet. We'll do videos for them shortly here, DM journals. But it became a driver that the players had a character in the world that they cared about just by the nature of who we said they were. And Vinzo being, Joe, the player, playing Vinzo, being a badass character, just immediately dove in and started hamming it up. This was his cousin, and he embraced it. So, player tip, if you do that kind of thing, your GM will love you and buy you cakes. So she, of course, knew a way out of this room. There was kind of like a back door over here behind this inconspicuous med crate. I knew they'd be a little bit beat up by this point in the adventure. And I had a thing kind of going on down here where Mandrick, was having a warrior last stand moment where he didn't want to leave because these skeleton things, I just kept spawning them over and over again. And he just kept trying to take them out and was like, no, I gotta get more kills in. So I needed another time pressure. Because they had already broken in, they dealt with the guys transforming over here. Needed a new time pressure, a new thing that would get them out of the hallway. So I started telegraphing that there was this blue glow coming from down here. And originally I had this token here set up. It was a little tiny worm that was up here. And the idea was that it would start slithering down the statue and would kill the little girl if they didn't make it in here. And I was completely prepared to do that because it would be messed up, but it would deliver home that time is real in games. Like, clock is always ticking. You've got to get moving. So they had already rescued the little girl. I needed to get a move on. So in the moment, I started thinking about it. I was like, whoa, wouldn't it be really cool if there was like a super gigantic purple worm type creature in this spaceship just moving around the halls and devouring the spaceship from the inside, like tunneling through and here and there. And this was described as being like a massive spaceship, so it kind of makes sense and work. The blue goo would just keep growing and growing and growing. And so, yeah, I grabbed that token, I made it huge, and it was just going to come down the hall, and that managed to drive. I don't even think I showed the creature. I think literally it was the threat that it's coming, and it helped to drive players forward. You always have to keep your players on their toes. There's we like safety as human beings, so there's a natural gravitation towards wanting to make things safe and just like, oh, let's hide out here and heal up and that kind of thing. And sometimes that is okay after a really long story beat, but if you want to keep things intense, you've got to keep cracking the whip and driving them forward. Do not let your players rest. Lessons of life. Let's see. We're at the end here. Before I show this final room, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should talk about. There probably is, but I'll just catch it in another video probably. Last room. Oh yeah. So the little girl, she described that her uncle, her father, because like why would a little girl be here without her parents? Her uncle went with our villain, our nemesis so far in the adventure, who has been Commander Oren. And so Commander Oren came here to the ship, and apparently Vinzo's brother was here doing research. And no one is supposed to be, like, it's pre-set up that no one is supposed to be here in the Imperium Belt. Like, this is off limits to the galaxy. This is like persona non grata territory. Things that come out of here are banned. Like, who would come here and wake up this sort of ancient genome empire, which we'll talk a lot more in the next journal. But the ancient empire of the humans that was put down and probably en masse some kind of giant alliance was needed to bring them down even in the first place. No one wants to wake them up. And I say that because in my version of the Warpshell, they are more or less undead creatures, human empire, because they are obsessed with immortality, and they managed to find it in the form of sort of a cybernetic undead, not unlike Necron monsters that you get in Warhammer. Super fun. So yeah, they came up here on this map. They came down this hallway, and it pretty much just ended with them coming around the corner. And this guy, grab him quick. Down. This guy was just standing over here. There wasn't fire because they hadn't blown everything up yet, but he was just standing over here, and like as a reaction, as soon as they come around the corner, they see him sort of conjure up some magic, and he tosses like an arcane bomb right here, and I put a little token on the map bomb, and that was the end scene, right? And then they all had everybody kind of reenact what are your final moments in the comic book, and they did that. And that was the end of the adventure. So there you go, short and sweet. How many rooms? Yes, we started in the Warpshell, but it was really the same as the belt. Like, nothing happened on the belt. That was just a picture. So 1, 2, 3, and then just kind of entered into the fourth room to end. Can't always do it, but it is really nice if you can end on some kind of story beat, like, oh, look, there's a big bad. And they come back in the next adventure to have sort of like what I would call an epic boss fight with this guy. We'll hit on that in the next DM journal. But for now, I hope that gives you some ideas for your games, a little behind the scenes about how all this is set up. You guys are badass. If you see me looking off here to the side here, because that's where I have my recording software kind of coming up. You know, thank you if you're still watching. You guys are awesome. Give me comments in the comment section if you want to see more content like that. If you hate content like that, give me comments so I know, and I'll stop wasting your time with them. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Spread the word and the love of ICRPG and RPGs in general to all those who you can. Be doing the work of the Celestial. With that, have a great night.